Now, a Conservative MP who was criticised after claiming that feminist zealots really do want women to have their cake and eat it has been elected to the House of Commons Women and Equalities Select Committee. It's something of a surprise because this committee holds the government to account on issues of sex, age, race and religion. In August, Mr Philip Davies, the MP for Shipley in West Yorkshire, criticised the benefits women have compared to men while speaking at the annual conference of something called Justice for Men and Boys. Justice for Men and Boys describes itself as the only political party in the English-speaking world campaigning for the human rights of men and boys. And let's listen to a little bit of the speech that Mr Davies gave them.
I want to be very clear that I don't believe that there is actually an issue between men and women. I think the problem is being stirred up by those who could be described as militant feminists and the politically correct males who pander to this nonsense. It seems to me that this has led to an equality, but only when it suits agenda that applies to women. The drive for women to have so-called equality on all the things that suit the politically correct agenda, but not on the things that don't, is of increasing concern to me. In this day and age, the feminist zealots really do want women to have their cake and eat it. They fight for their version of equality on all the things that suit women, but are very quick to point out that women need special protections and treatment on other things. Many women use their children as a stick to beat the father with, either because they are bitter about the failed relationship, for financial reasons, or because they've moved on and it's easier for them if their new partner takes on the role of father to their children.
Philip Davies speaking. Those comments prompted many women to tweet photos of themselves eating cake with the hashtag #LetThemEatCake. The remarks were also condemned by some opposition MPs. But now Philip Davies has been elected to sit on this House of Commons Women and Equalities Select Committee, despite 1 year ago saying the committee's creation was one of the most depressing things to happen recently. And he joins us now. Good afternoon.
Hello.
So it's a committee that you would rather not existed, is that right?
I would rather it was called the Equalities Committee, and then there's no reason then why issues that affect women couldn't be discussed, but also it would enable issues that affect men to be discussed as well. If we believe in true equality, surely it should just be called the Equality Committee.
Because the idea of your critics seems to be that actually it's women have lagged behind in society, they got to vote later, they got lower pay, and therefore there needs to be something somewhere that keeps an eye on that and challenges it.
Well, I believe in equality. If what you're suggesting there is that means that we need positive discrimination towards women, then I reject that. I don't think that discriminating against one group of people is rectified by discriminating against another group of people. What I want is for men and women to be treated equally. I want us to be gender blind. I want us to be race blind, religion blind, sexuality blind. All of those things should be irrelevant. We should just treat everybody equally. And the speech I made, actually, that you referred to, it was a speech about the criminal justice system where I was arguing that men and women should be treated equally before the court. So that when they're sentenced, it should be irrelevant whether they're a man or a woman. It should simply be based on the crime that they committed. And I don't really see what's so controversial about that. If anyone can point to anything I've said where I've said that women should be treated more unfavourably, a woman should be treated more unfavourably than a man, I would love you to play a clip of it, because I've never said such a thing, nor would I say such a thing.
Quoted as saying more women should be sent to prison.
No, I've said that men and women should be treated equally before the courts. And the fact of the matter is that for every single category of offence, these are the official figures from the Ministry of Justice, for every single category of offence, a man is more likely to be sent to prison than a woman for committing that offence. They're likely to be sent to prison for longer, and they will serve more of their sentence in prison than a woman does. That's the fact. Now, I'm saying that, in my opinion, when somebody goes before the court, their gender, their race, their religion, their sexuality, all of those things should be completely irrelevant. They should be sentenced based on the crime that they've committed. So anyone who's arguing against that, they're the ones who are being sexist if they're arguing that men and women should be treated differently by the courts. I'm saying they should be treated exactly the same by the courts.
What about your remarks, Philip, that disabled people could work for less than the minimum wage?
Well, if you're taking my speech out of context.
Well, just expand on that first.
Well, what I actually said, it was a speech that I said that anybody who hasn't got a job, anybody, I didn't say just disabled people. I said anybody who hasn't got a job, who is wanting to get a foot on the jobs ladder, should be able, if they so wish, to say to an employer for a limited period of time, look, I'm prepared to work for less than the minimum wage for maybe a day, for maybe a week, for maybe a month, to prove myself, to say that I can do this job. And if somebody wants to do that in order to prove themselves, the government shouldn't tell them that they can't do that. That's what I said. And I said that should apply to anybody who is struggling to get a job. I didn't just pick out disabled people in the way that you're indicating I did. I said everybody should be free to do that. And actually, we've got a situation in the country at the moment where it's free to work for nothing. It's absolutely fine to work for somewhere for nothing, voluntarily, but it's an absolute horror crime for somebody to be paid £5 an hour. Now, I don't know about you, I'm from Yorkshire, maybe we have a different attitude in Yorkshire, but if somebody said to me, you can either work for nothing, or you can work for £4 an hour or £5 an hour, it's your choice, I'd pick the £4 or £5 an hour. You may say you'd pick nothing, but maybe that's a London-centric metropolitan elite kind of view, but how can it be right? My point was this, how can it be right that somebody can work for nothing, and nobody complains about that, but it's an absolute scandal for somebody to do the same thing for £4 or £5 an hour? That to me is a nonsense.
All right, and is it your view broadly that middle-aged white men are now the oppressed minority?
No, I've never said that. I don't believe that to be the case at all. No, but I think the one of the groups that are very badly doing very badly in society are white working class boys in school, and I think again all the evidence would suggest that. And I don't think that just because they're white and working class, that makes them any less important for us to focus on than whether they were girls.
Stay with us. We've got, I think, one of your constituents, Jenny Wilson from Shipley, on the line. And you, Jenny, you set up a group called Shipley Feminist Zealots, using the phrase that Philip coined. And that's a Facebook group. So you've heard Philip set out his case. What do you disagree with there?
Well, where to start? Yeah. We set up the community group with that tongue-in-cheek name after Philip's speech this summer. And what's really worrying is that someone who's got a proven track record of antagonism around issues affecting women, the appointment of someone like Philip to the Women and Equalities Committee is a serious worry, because he constantly talks about men's issues, and men's issues are very important to me as a feminist. But he talks about men's issues as if we're in a kind of zero game here, that by women getting more rights, somehow men are going to lose theirs, and that's simply not the case. If we could do something about the gender pay gap, if we could do something about the disproportionate effect of violence on women in society, that would be for the benefit of everyone.
But he made the point, Jenny, that if you take a conviction for murder, the bloke goes to prison for longer than the woman, and he finds that unfair.
Well, if the statistics bear out what he's saying, I'm sure that is unfair. But what's also unfair is that two-thirds of domestic violence occurs against women, and that the majority of those crimes are committed by men. Now, I love men. I've got a 20-year-old son. I'm very concerned about the issues that Philip mentioned about how young men do suffer. Our group, the Shipley Feminist Zealots, we are quite tongue-in-cheek, and after he said feminists could have their cake and eat it, we baked cakes and we gave them out in our local marketplace in Shipley and asked for donations. Half of the donations went to Bradford Women's Aid and half went to a charity called CALM, the Campaign Against Living Miserably, which do great work with young men around their mental health issues and around their ability to express their feelings. But
at the moment, I can't really work out where you disagree with your MP from what you've said.
I believe in gender equality, and I am alarmed that my MP wants to do away with the name women on the Women and Equalities Committee in a world where clearly women bear the brunt of gender inequality.
Philip, you come back on that.
Issue. Well, I want to tackle inequality wherever it exists, not just where it exists against women. That's the difference really between me and Jenny, it seems, that I want to tackle all gender inequality. And yes, of course, it's a massive concern that many women are victims of domestic violence. 2/3 of victims of domestic violence are women. That's terrible. 1/3 are men. We should be equally concerned about the third who are men as we are about the 2/3 that are women. They're all victims of domestic violence. And all I'm saying is we should be gender blind when it comes to this. We should be concerned about all victims of domestic violence. And I don't really see what the problem is with actually saying, well, look, let's treat everybody equally. Let's take their gender out of it.
What about something like the pay gap, Philip, where women clearly suffer for being paid less for the same job. We know that from all the statistics.
Yes, there is a gender pay gap, and I'm very happy for the committee to look into the gender pay gap. There's actually also, I might just point out, a part-time gender pay gap, where actually in part-time work, part-time women are paid more than part-time men. You don't hear that raised so often, but surely all of these things are important. And this idea that I don't care about women's rights is a complete nonsense. In fact, only recently in Parliament I raised the issue, and I hope our committee will look into Sharia councils and how terribly discriminated against women are in Sharia councils, which I would like to see abolished. So this idea that I don't care about any areas where women are disadvantaged is just simply untrue. But I don't apologise for saying, actually, do you know what? There are some areas where men's issues need raising, whether it's male suicide rates or things like that, and I make no apology for raising those too.
Jenny, it sounds like you could all be happy if you take the word women out of the committee, and Philip's on it, and he's not particularly hostile, and then the committee does some things about where men suffer, and it evens up a bit. Would that be a solution for you?
It wouldn't be a solution for me, no, because I think it's very important that the word women is in the title of that committee. In a parliament where less than 30% of the MPs are female, another demonstration of the systematic patriarchal systems that we're in, and that needs challenging. And until it's a wonderful utopian idea that we could just be blind to these things and treat everyone equally. I love that idea. Of course I do. That would be wonderful. But the simple fact is, some people are discriminated against, and we need to highlight those issues where women are discriminated against, where people from specific ethnic minorities are discriminated against, people with disabilities, older people. I could go on. We need to highlight those groups and the specific disadvantages they face.
Thank you very
rather than
much.
just lumping it all in together.
Cheers. Jenny Wilson from Shipley, constituent of Philip Davies, MP for Shipley, who is against, as he says, feminist zealots, but has been elected onto the House of Commons Select Committee on Women and Equality. Thomas Taylor in Stirling comments on Mr Davies, the MP we spoke to, who's, we can call him broadly anti-feminist. Thomas says, I agree with him. The reason he's part of the men's group is because domestic violence groups don't deal with crimes against men. It's a lot of rubbish to say that a woman's place is in the kitchen, but we just want an equal setting for men. Women should be able to work in the kitchen if they want to, he says. But of a different view is Annie Shelbourne in Carnforth, Lancashire. You were not impressed by what you heard, Annie?
Not at all. I can't believe this anti-feminist misogynist has been elected to the Women and Equalities Commission. He's trying to sort of turn things on his head and just completely deny that there's systematic or systemic discrimination against women, not just in this country, but all over the world.
He wants more women to go to prison, or, well, effectively he wants that. But he makes an interesting argument, which is that if you look at exactly the same crime, the bloke always gets a longer sentence.
I don't think, for a start, that women and men tend to commit the same types of crimes. There's all sorts of things with women. Women usually have children, so it would be very bad for children if women are automatically put into prison when there are other ways of dealing with them. As far as domestic violence goes, yes, there's a proportion of domestic violence which is committed against men, but most of it is committed by other men in gay relationships. There are, is a very small minority of domestic violence which is women on men. And when we look at all the sort of institutions in Britain, well, and everywhere really, or particularly though in Britain, in Parliament, the majority of MPs are still men. The judiciary, the vast majority of judges are still men. Top business people, CEOs, mainly men, and on and on and on it goes. It's absolute nonsense to sort of really deny that there is this systemic problem, which is that women are definitely discriminated against. And things like, poor white boys at school doing less well than girls, a lot of that is to do with social class and not just to do with gender. I've
just been handed a really interesting statistic which says this. Since 1918, a total of 455 women have become MPs, and that 455 is the exact number of male MPs who we have currently. How about that?
Yeah, it's terrible.
That's a good stat, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thanks, Annie, very much indeed. Thank you. Good shout there, but maybe not everyone agrees with it. Eve Grace is in Huntingdon. Hi, Eve.
Hello.
You think it's gone a bit too far?
Yes, I think over the last 30 years things have progressed magnificently for women. And I think nowadays we ought to start realising that we're all pretty equal. Do we really need all men groups to say all women are awful? Do we really need all women group to say all men are unjust toward us?
But hasn't Annie just given us the reasons we still have these so-called women's groups, which is the pay gap, the fact that you see the board of a company, it's all blokes, it's still blokes.
Go back 100 years and see how far we've come along. We've started communicating. We've actually started moving things along. It can't be done overnight. We've got a female...
Prime Minister? Yeah.
Prime Minister now, sorry. Yes, and things are moving along. But do we really need them to be moving along with sort of such an antagonistic way, you know? Can we not just move along gradually in harmony with one another? Not just about the male-female thing, about the whole of the equality situation we have that always seems to meet the headlines, you know, within our country.
Now, just a couple more comments on the whole business of Philip Davies, anti-feminist, being elected to the House of Commons Women's and Equality Committee. Barry Mitchell in Sydenham, Oxfordshire, says, in the whole of my life, I've always worried about equality for women and men. It's outrageous that they have to pay for sanitary towels. Philip Davies should be painting lines on a motorway at rush hour. So he's quite with it, old Barry. Elaine in Peterborough says, I'm a disabled woman, but I agree with Philip Davies. I find feminism embarrassing. They're always negative. They always shout. I think a lot of them actually abhor men. If we talk about equality, we should talk about everyone on this planet, not just women.